Good morning everyone, and welcome to the latest webinar from FileMaker, Meet FileMaker 16. First of all, my name is Douglas Wallace. I work for FileMaker in Europe, and I'm the product specialist. Before we start, a couple of points on the technical side. So we're using GoToWebinar to be able to actually share our information with you today. You'll probably need a good broadband connection to be able to actually listen properly. You can actually use it either on your iPad, iPhone, or on the Mac. If you have any technical issues, you can go to the help Struxet website, and there'll be a couple of options to actually sort of get through if you can't hear properly, or if you have problem getting the connection to stay live. Also, with GoToWebinar, you've got the option to ask us a couple of questions. So if you go on the control panel, in the section questions, you can just enter your questions and click send, and we'll try to answer as many questions as you can towards the end of the webinar. As ever, because there's quite a lot of you, if we can't actually answer your questions, we'll get back to you either by email or by phone. So we recently announced the new version of FileMaker 16, and over the next hour we'll basically share with you all the new key enhancements that we've added to the platform, and I think you're gonna like quite a few of those. But first of all, I'd like to actually just go back through the products that make up the FileMaker platform, just so that everyone knows where we stand. So the FileMaker platform is made of two groups. The first group basically will be the clients. So at the center you have FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Pro Advanced that are used to create and use and run your custom apps that you can run basically on the Mac or the Windows. Then you have FileMaker Go that you can download free of charge from the App Store, which you can install either on your iPad, iPhone, or even iPod Touch. And that'll basically give you the option or the possibility to be able to run on your iPhone, iPad, your custom app directly, either being connected to a server or to a file that's hosted locally on your FileMaker Go. And then FileMaker Web Direct, which will give you the option or the possibility to connect to your custom app through a web browser. And so FileMaker Web Direct will have to connect to the FileMaker server to be able to connect and get those files. And then you have the server side, where we have two products there. FileMaker Server, which basically is used to host your file, runs the backups, and gets you the option to access your solution through the web browsers. And recently, we launched FileMaker Cloud, which is a smaller version of FileMaker Server, which is a FileMaker server hosted by Amazon on their platform called Amazon Web Services, whereby you'll be quite easily be able to access your custom apps from anywhere around the world. So what's new to the FileMaker 16 platform? So for the last couple of versions, what we've done is we've reduced the amount of new features that we're bringing on a daily, every time we have a new update. So before, FileMaker used to come out with new version between every 18 months, 2 years. Now the idea is to really go into a yearly cycle so that we can actually keep on track of whatever new technology comes in the market, and we'll be able to actually react a lot more quicker. The other point on the other side is we want to make sure that people know the new features that we bring to the platform, and that they have the tools and the information for them to know how to use them and what they should be doing with it. So the idea is to reduce the amount, give you more information about all those new features so that you know how they work, and then you can try them as soon as you've got FileMaker 16 installed. So as you can see from the slide, we've made enhancement in terms of mobility. So that's mainly aimed at FileMaker Go for the iPhone and the iPad, where we've added quite a few new features to make it more native look and feel to your custom apps. In terms of developments, you'll see we've added quite a few new features in terms of the development side to make it easier to be able to actually create and view the layouts and the custom apps you create in a better way. But also the important stuff is once your custom app is done and the developers finish the work, it needs to work in a way whereby the end user feels that they're really using a custom app and not something that actually runs or has to be completely controlled by FileMaker. So you'll see even on a Windows interface, we've changed the interface so that people have got a feeling that basically it is a proper customer they're using. In terms of integration, so FileMaker has always been able to integrate itself with other systems. So before that we had ODBC and ESS and XML export and stuff like that, where you've been able to actually get FileMaker to work with other systems. So everything that is being kept. But we've added a new set of system whereby now, using an API RESTful system, web service, we'll get FileMaker to be able to actually get other systems to talk to it. But we've added also JSON functions. And JSON is a text format to exchange data between web services. So FileMaker will have a better way of talking to other systems and vice versa systems to be able to talk to it. In terms of security, very important for us here at FileMaker, we've added a couple of support for authority systems to be able to get your account to connect to systems like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft Azure. And the final one, in terms of scalability, we've been upgrading FileMaker Web Direct to get up to 500 users. So first of all, let's start with the FileMaker Go. So we've added the animation and transition within the script. So now you'll basically provide visual transition to help orient the users as they go through the custom that you've created, especially when they switch layout or when they go to related records. In terms of the signature, we've enhanced the system and it works. In addition to actually be able to do full screen now, you'll be able to actually do an overlay system or embedded into the layout. For the region monitoring script step, it's an action that's being automatically performed on your iOS device, and it's looking for nearby iBeacon or geofence system. So for those who don't know iBeacon, it's a technology created by Apple, which basically it's a small device that sends a ping around its location just to say I'm here. And so within your system, you can say that whenever you actually get quite close to that iBeacon, it can actually run a script on your system. So your idea is potentially when you go into a classroom with the iBeacon turned on with the iPad, as soon as you're actually walking into the classroom, it will basically, instead of actually you having to do a search, it will say you're in classroom K101, and basically will bring you the data based on that information. And we've also added custom paper size to FileMaker Go so that user can use predefined paper sizes on your system. So what I'll do is I'll go into demo mode now to give you a couple of examples of what we've done. So in terms of being able to actually get you to actually know what we've done and how it works, we've created what we call a demo kit of FileMaker 16, which are currently 7 files. There'll be 8 soon, where we basically explain to you what we've done, how it works, and a couple of demo files. So let me show you on my iPad how those files look like. So in my FileMaker Go that's connected to my server, I've got those files basically. So we've got 8, which you can find from the community website on the demo kit. And those files basically are separate between those new features. And the idea is to be able to actually show you what it does, how it works, what you can do with it. So if I go into the first one, which is called animation and transition, and I open that file, use Touch ID, say my password, you'll see the look and feel is always the same. We kept it quite easy. There's a close button at the top. On the other side, you've got the settings, so you can control that. So the idea is, first of all, is into the what is we tell you what are the changes or what the new stuff that we brought into FileMaker 16. So in terms of transition, this is where you'll be able to actually switch from different layouts with the animation. So it can be either used in the go to layout script step, or it can be used in the go to layout script step. And then the animation available are sliding, flipping, zooming, and cross. So how does that work? Well, basically on those updated script step, all you have to do is select the animation. So this animation currently only work on FileMaker Go. So if you treat your system just on Windows or the Mac, and if you add the animation, you're not going to see any changes on the Mac, just on FileMaker Go. So if I give a quick try it, basically if I flip, it just flips the whole layout. Zoom for that, zoom in not the same. So the only difference is when you actually do a slide in, either from the left or sliding from the right, you'll see that basically the top navigation bar at the top doesn't move. So we've been able, basically, just like you have on normal apps on iOS, the sliding effect only does it on certain part of the body. And if I slide out to the right and slide to the left, it does the same. And you've got to slide in, or you've got to slide out. So if data does move, then it's a nice way to be able to actually keep the text at the top always the same. And then finally, you'll have some sort of small demo. So we use the inventory custom app that we have part of FileMaker 16. And if I turn on the animation, go to transaction, see what it's a lot nicer than before. If I turn it off with the old system, it basically just flicks. And for a lot of users, when you use iOS apps on a daily basis and you're used to that, if you don't see it in one application, it tends to actually sort of get people frustrated about the way they use the system. So if you can actually bring in animation transition to all your custom apps, then end users will be a lot more inclined to use that solution on a daily basis. The second one that we have is the enhanced signature capture. So again, if I go into the what, it will basically tell me what I can do with it. So it's part of the insert from device script step. How does that work? It's quite easy. Basically, we've added a presentation, so you can select whether you want to have full screen, an overlay system, or embedded. So if you've got full screen, works the same as on FileMaker 15. If I've got overlay, basically overlay will just put it at the bottom of the part. So it's a nice way to be able to still control and see what is on top of it. And the embedded is basically staying on top of the container. And so it's a lot smaller, but you can actually control the placement of that embedded signature field anywhere on the layout. So one thing to remember is in terms of the minimum size for the embedded. So it's 318 points by 165. So if it's the right size, then I can go into it. If it's too small, then basically it will go into the overlay mode. So if you have two contained fields, so this is number one, I can assign to that one, and I get it to overlay, and if it's embedded, it will stay in that one. But if I have the same container field, it will basically always put the embedded on the first location of that container. So if I go into overlay, that's what I assign, and the embedded will go on top of the first location of that container field. So just one thing to actually be careful about. So in terms of last part is the demo. So how can you actually use it within your custom app? So one easy thing is if you have a contract where you want people to be able to actually read it and sign the bottom, you can keep basically all the text there at the bottom. They can sign it while actually viewing what they're doing, click accept, and it's done. Well, the second part, which is quite interesting, it's quite useful. In that terms, I've got to get two signatures, one from the customer rep and one from the crane operator. I can make sure that basically everyone uses the right box that they have to do, and they can still see what's on top of it. They can make sure that basically the user has actually signed it and get all the information. So in terms of development, so what we've added is we've added the new layout object window. So that allows you to view a list of all the objects that are on the layout, and so you can then select, hide, or rename this object, and then you can change the stacking order. So it's quite useful to be able to actually sort of drill down, especially when you have quite a few objects on your layout, to the one specific that needs to be modified or removed. So the new card option, when you create a new window, it gives you the ability to create a new window that allows users to open other windows and file without having to close the card. So the idea is you could basically, on top of your main window, have a smaller card window which is modal to the main one and controlled by the main one, where you can have different information from what you're looking at. So I'll show you an example afterwards to actually sort of give you a better view of what you can do with it. We've added PDF support in FileMaker Web Direct and FileMaker Server. So now you can print PDF, invoices, labels in FileMaker Web Direct. And then you can run automated reports and save other information as PDF. And then you can use scripts to perform on FileMaker Server those scripts to create PDFs on the server. We've done a new UI for Windows OS. So now we support single document interface on the Windows platform instead of the multiple document interface. So instead of actually having your FileMaker windows within one big FileMaker app, now every every window basically lives in sort of like an own world with its own menu, so it's a lot more useful for the end users. And with SDI, all the document windows are actually independent from each other. We've added an option for copy and paste in the value list. So now you can, in the manage value list dialog box in FileMaker, you can do a lot of copy and pasting, which is quite useful. We've added variables in FileMaker data sources references. So when you dynamically open hosted FileMaker files by specifying a variable when choosing a file path. But you can also now use variables in the script steps insert form, so insert from date or URL or calculated result. And we've got now an enhanced data viewer which supports autocomplete from the function names. So we improve the edit expression dialog box, and so there is also the evaluation. So it's a lot more in line with the rest of the FileMaker system. So let me show you quickly how that layout object window can be useful for you. So we have another demo file that we've created, which basically is used for a carpet and various other kind of. So when I go into one of my products, I've got the option to basically add a product for a quote for a client. So when I go into add to quote, I basically have the card that comes up. So I can make sure that way that basically the end user, when they're creating that quote, or my sales rep, has got this window and he can't actually get out of it unless either he uses the close button or completes the quote. But basically he knows he has to fill in the information in that layout. And so let's say I need to actually select and go there and then create a new customer. When I go basically in postal or zip code, I can find basically it doesn't look really nice and it doesn't sort of show properly. So I want to actually modify that layout. So as you can see, there is no way for me to go into layout mode, but if I just do cancel and close that, I will go into layout mode and I will go to my card quote layout. Now, so I know basically it's basically any features on the new customer side that I want to modify. And you can see now on the left hand side, on the right hand side, I've got my layout object window where I've got all the different objects that I can see on that layout. So there's a way for me to be able to actually filter that. So I can say just show me the text or the shapes. And there's a search option. So I know that one of the fields is called zip. So if I just type in zip or postal code, it basically will drill down and actually show me all the words actually start with a postal code. So in that term, I've got my postal code, the edit box. So when I click on it, it just basically appears. And so it's been able to actually sort of have all those where I quite hardly before had to get to it because I had to double click and then go into that slide control and find the right button and the right slide control. Now I just need to actually sort of know the name of what I'm looking for, type it in and find it. So if I've got my edit box at the far, I can quickly change the size of it. Say I want the size to be 12, be in center, and then I just save that to my theme. That way I make sure that everything else has got it. Same for that one. I think it's too big. I change the name. Put that test 14. save it in my theme, and it's applied across the room. That one is pretty much because it's too big. I just renamed that. Use my grid line to make sure it's aligned. As you save, when I go back into it, I've got my new layout. And it saved me a lot of my time, because before I had to actually figure out where all of that was actually located in that layout. So you'll be able to see the card. If I basically go into a script, I'll just show you how you do a new card. So you just use new window, or you can go to records. So now you can decide which style of window you want to have. If I go for card, I just need to select which layout I want to go to. I can say on the current one, but go to a different one. And because they were out of context, you can go to any layout, doesn't matter. I will basically go to that one. You can select where you want to actually position it and do different stuff. So if I go back on my iPad and go into the card section, so as you can see, basically, is you can control the position and the size of it. So when I try it, you can see there's no Windows title, it's borderless, there's no zoom control, there's custom menu is actually supported, and all view and layout object are supported, and you've got the option to either dim or not the parent window. So how to do it, basically, as I was showing you, just go new window, and then you select card, and then you can actually modify all the information that goes with it. So if you don't give information about the dimension, the position, it will basically put it in the center of the screen, or your main sort of layout, and it will use the size of the layout that you've created. But if I specify the size of it, let's say it's 500, it will basically recreate the card in the right format, in the right size. Now in terms of positioning, if I put it at 50 and 50, it's basically positioning it from the parent window. So it's not 50 pixels from the top left-hand corner, it's the top left-hand corner of the window that I'm in. In my case it goes here, but if I had a smaller window, if I can make, oops. So let's say basically I had the top on it, basically it's the 50-50 of that, the parent window, and not the complete screen. And then you got the option to actually have it dim or not dim with this value, so you can see it at the center of the screen. So there's no way for you, because you can't actually sort of control manually the code itself, there is no way for you to be able to minimize it or maximize it manually. So you have to basically use the script steps to move or resize the window. So I can move it, and all I'm doing basically is just adding value like I did before. So the next thing is in interacting with the fields that you basically have in the parent window. So all the scripts and script triggers that run in the card are actually supported. The script steps that work to access the field in the parent layout will actually not work, because you're in different contexts, so you haven't actually got access to the calc engine to be able to talk to it. However, if you want to basically modify data, you can actually set fields by using table or links between different layouts or different tables. So the insert calc will not work, you will get an error, but you can set the field. When I close it, you'll see it's actually changed the name. And on FileMaker Go, when you press on, I think you'll see basically it will basically shift everything up, so that you can actually have the keyboard, same for the numbers, everything is being shifting up. So basically, as you can see, you can do a lot of stuff. It's quite useful. Play with it, see what works, what doesn't work for you. As you can see, some of the stuff that's supported, so you can't actually have the status bar or the menu toolbar, but you can have the text ruler on top of it. You can view it as a form, as a list, as a table. You have got access to all the modes apart from layout. And from a card, you can open another document, a dialog, but you can't actually open a card because the window can actually only have one card at a time. So that for once, something we don't really do at Apple, but we'll just basically show you the new UI on the window. So if I just quickly start up a VM of Windows, you'll be able to see how that works. So previously, for those of you who've been using FileMaker for a long time, even 15, you'll see that whenever you actually start up a couple of files on FileMaker Pro, they will basically all run in the same Windows file. So if I start up the first one, and I've got a small event management file, as you can see now, we basically are getting something that looks a lot more than what you have on the Mac. So we've made basically the menu is part of the file, and if I open the second file, both files basically can live next to one another quite nicely, and each one, as you can see, has got those menus. So on that one, I can basically have a custom menu, but not on that one. So they work independently from one another, and you're not sort of everything stuck to within the same MDI environment. It's quite useful for that. And the one thing you see basically from the bottom is we remove the zoom bottom and the different access to all the different menus, because that's only useful for development. The end user, once the solution has been created, they need to be able to actually work like it's a normal application. So there's no need to actually have all that development systems in the background. So you can still have the option to be able to zoom in. So you've got basically zoom in, zoom out. You can script that as well. So if you want to zoom in into your systems, you can actually recreate those buttons quite easily. So let's talk about sort of PDF support. So what I'll do is, because there's always been a lot of interest, I'll basically open that into FileMaker Web Direct and get to a small solution. So what we've done, which is quite simple, and since a couple of versions now, we've actually redid the complete sort of usage of PDFs within FileMaker, and we're using a sort of new plugin system. So it gives us a lot more control of what we can do. So what can you do with PDF support on Web Direct? So now you'll be able to actually do a print script step or print setup, and then just save as record this PDF, which basically will give you the option to save files in your web browser diff location, and you'll be able to actually on FileMaker server do server-side scripting to save as a PDF. So how does that work? Well, basically within the print, you can add various information. They've been updated. Same for save as record. You can actually decide how you want it to work. So if I go do a quick train, so I've got this small inventory report which has been sorted. If I print, I can just click on print. I can select paper size, and I go view. As you can see, basically it's creating a PDF that is viewable from my browser. That PDF, once created by the server, is saved into that session, into the session sort of cache, but will disappear as soon as I close that session. So it's only live in this environment in my browser, but there's nothing basically on the server. So that file, there is nowhere anyone else can get to it. It basically was sent between the server and the browser, and it's only in the session cache of that browser. so there's no way you can actually get to it. So if I send that link to anyone else, that will not work. And from here I could decide to actually save it if I want to. You've got the option to actually do all the print setup as well, and you can save the record as a PDF. So if I click on that, it gives me the option to select the record range and just do save as, and then I can view my document. But the other thing which is quite nice as well is you can actually get the server to save record as PDF, and then you'll basically be able to import that into a container. So if I do full screen server is running it, and basically is then saving the PDF on my file. So how is it doing it? Because we had assumed quite a question already on how do you insert the PDF on the server. So if I go, close that. So I'll show you by going into that file. And if I go into the scripts, as you can see, all I have to do, which is quite simple, is I just set a variable of where I want the file to be saved. So all you have to do is use the action script tab get temporary path, so that'll save it on the server in the right location that's accessible completely by FileMaker server and the services. So there's no problem with authorization from the server. Then your next step will be to basically save the record as a PDF in that, using that path. Then you go to the layout where you can find your container, and then you use the function insert from URL. So there's no way you can actually insert a PDF or file. And if I select that and go into the server, you can see basically that all the insert don't actually work whenever there's actually file or PDF or pictures, because you work in a non-visual environment. So server can't actually see what it's doing, so there's no way to be able to actually integrate that data. But if you use insert from URL, there is a way for you basically can import any type of file into either any variable or any container field or any field. So all I've got to do basically is select the target, which is my container. I specify the URL, which is the file, so I'm using the file address system so that you can actually import that properly. And then within the code there's no option for that. I just import that, and it will just basically import that. So that's quite nice, because that way if you have quite a large PDFs to create and you need to actually have it done either using on FileMaker Go or WebDirect, you can get the server to basically offload the work, do the work for you, and once it's done, give you an alert. Same if I go on the small demo, you can see, so I've got a small signature, and I'm just basically saying create the PDF for me with that signature, and then put it and save it on within my container. Quite easy to do, works really nicely, and I will basically help a lot of people that had issues with PDFs on their WebDirect or various information. So if I go on WebDirect, works the same way. Click on New Contract, and then now I've got my PDF created and saved. So now into the integration part of FileMaker, and we've made quite a few enhancements in the area of integration. So first of all, we've added JSON function. So what is JSON? So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's like a basic text format to transfer data between web services. And so what you have is, within your text, you have an element of an object, and then the value that goes with it. So you will basically have, let's say if you have a person or contact, you would have the name, or the first name, and then Douglas, and then last name Wallace, and so on. And it's quite easy to read. It's basic text with basically the object name and the value that actually goes with it. And it provides a set of, so the JSON function that we've integrated in FileMaker provides a set of predefined function to be able to parse and generate JSON data, which can then be exchanged with other data sources, such as web services that have a RESTful API. So a lot more now, you'll hear the word API. Basically, it's a system for two web services to be able to talk to one another. And so from the insert from URL, we had the option to be able to do curl options. So curl is the basis of a lot of browsers, where when you download the file, it runs a curl script step for you, which you don't see, but now within FileMaker you'll be able to actually run a lot more useful stuff. And so you can configure and do HTTP calls or FTP, so you could, within the curl, you could download data from an FTP server or upload files directly to an FTP server. Now that's the one way basically to get FileMaker to actually to talk to other web services. But if you get other services, you can talk to other services. You need to get other services to actually talk to back to FileMaker, so that you can have a two-way communications, and then you can integrate a lot more software with FileMaker. So you can get your FileMaker to work with your Sage, or Salesforce, or Mailchimp, or whatever services, and you can get data to go back and forth between your two different systems. So what we've done in FileMaker Server 16 is we've added a trial for the FileMaker Data API. So the trial is to be used, will expire on September 27, 2018, so you go a year and a half to be able to actually play with it. The reason we basically put it as a trial was to see what people were doing with it and see how much information we need to add to get people to be more into it before it's completely integrated in the product. And the API basically will allow you to actually interchange data with the other apps and other API through JSON. So to give you a taster, basically we've added also the a Tableau Web Data Connector for FileMaker. So directly from FileMaker or from Tableau, you'll be able to get FileMaker data. So Tableau is a web app that was created to help users be able to visualize the data properly. So a lot of the time people were actually using a spreadsheet and then integrating graphs or charts within the spreadsheet, which sort of didn't really work. So the whole idea of Tableau is it doesn't sort of manage the data, so it's not really there to actually be able to actually modify the data. The idea is to basically be able to see it properly and then pick up errors and then modify it and then do all the script step system to get the data back and forth between your FileMaker and your Tableau. And we've also added external script steps to the system. So with the external script steps, basically is you're creating a plugin systems that you can reuse within your system. And so the FileMaker plugin SDK will support the creation of external script steps, which will also support FileMaker plugins that you can create for your FileMaker Go when you use the FileMaker iOS app SDK. So now you have the option to create plugins for FileMaker Go for your solution. So if you need your FileMaker Go solution to talk to whatever systems that is not completely integrated currently with FileMaker Go, you'll be able to actually do that. We're also extending the Mac and the Windows script workspace to display, add, edit, and remove external script steps from FileMaker scripts. And the external script steps will work with FileMaker clients that supports plugin, including the server-side script engine. And as I was saying before, the plugin developers will now be able to develop iOS plugin, which can be built into their custom app using the iOS app SDK. And plugin developers will also be able to build their own UI for their custom scripts using the FileMaker provided XML description syntax. So if you need more information, you can actually look on our website to get that info on the community. So let me go sort of into the sort of the JSON world. So if I open one of the files that we've created for JSON functions. So what do we put? So basically, we have created those 6 script steps that lets you sort of manipulate the data, the JSON data that you have. So you've got the JSON delete element, where you can actually delete a specified data element within the data set that you have. You can format the element so it looks nicer and easier to read. You can do a JSON get element that will query the data to actually get you a specified element. You can list the keys or the arrays, indexes that you have in the data. You can list the values as well, or you can set element. So a quick introduction. So to make it really simple, basically is in the structure of your JSON file, you have an object whereby you give it a string name and then a value, and it's basically how it works. So if I give you a small example, you will give it a name of the string of the object, and then giving a value, and from the value there can be a string, it can be numbers, Boolean values, whatever you want it to be. And the idea is it's put in a way that anyone can actually read it quite easily. So those are the new functions with different sort of parameters that you can actually put at the end of it. So to give an example, basically is we are going to grab data from a website that where you provide an IP address website, it gives you back the IP address of that server where the DNS is located and so on. If I go and open the script steps, so I'm going to open my script geolocation. So from the using the insert from URL, all I'm doing basically is going to this website called free GeoIP and tell it basically is I'm sending you some information and I want you to return me data in JSON. So all of the APIs will give you the option to actually specify whether you want to do a JSON or whether you want to do XML. And so basically I'm getting just data back. So I'm sending a request to a web service and I get data back. So in that case with the FileMaker.com, so you click on that and that's information it's giving me back. Then I'm going to use basically the JSON format element to be able to read it better than before. So as you can see now it's nicely laid out and I can read it properly. Sorry. Then the list keys will basically give me a list of all the object names that I've got in my JSON data file. I can then do the JSON list value and that will give me a list of all the object value. So again. And then I'll be able to actually query using JSON get element to get any element. So all I've got to do basically is I've got to select a key. So it could be anything. So I can type the IP address and I'll be basically provide me with the IP address. Or I can select the region name and I get the data straight away. And the same way, because I can query, I can also delete any of the elements that are going there. So if I decide to actually delete the zip code, sorry, I just click on that and my zip code is being deleted from the file. And the last one is the option to set element. So I can basically set back the zip code to whatever I want to be, so 52500. Then I select the type of key I want it to be, so it can be a string, which is text, a number, an object. If I say I'm sure it's string, because it might have a 0 at the top, I can keep it and it's adding it to the list. You can see the difference is that is text, that is a number, so it knows it's a number. So if I had, if I put a 0222 and I say it's a number, you see that basically you can have, it will not start with a 0. So if I really want to make sure that I say it's a zip code that actually start with a 0, I'll use the string and I'll put the value. It's quite straightforward, quite easy to use. I'll give you another example by getting data from the Google API, the Map API, to see what you can do with it. So this is the basic data that we use for the 0 to 60 demo that we use in FileMaker when we present to new customers. And so we have a list of data whereby we got customer details, an address. So I've got my couple of fields where I've got information of the location of my clients. When I type this information, sometimes there might be errors or I'm missing some data. So what I'm doing basically, I'm just going to create and send a request to the Google API engine to validate that information and maybe give me some more. And the one thing basically I'm actually missing is the latitude and the longitude. And so I could go on the Google website, type the address and figure out. But because of JSON it's quite easy, is all I've got to do is send a request and then fetch the data for me. So all I've got to do is I've got a small button, I click on that Google API. It's basically sending those information to the API and I get the data back. As you can see, it's just text. It took hardly even a second. It's quite straightforward and it's quite quick. And I've got all the information that I need now. So how did I actually do that? So to get the address, all I've got to do basically is I'm going to create a variable for my URL where I'm going to basically specify the information I want to send and the server it's going to. So the map engine for the map Google API has got a nice way of doing it. And within the URL, you just need to specify which part of the API you want to talk to, the format, and it does everything for you. Which is quite nice. Is it has this function of JSON, which you don't have to actually use, but in the new system you can use that. I then provide all my fields and it sends data across. Once I've got that, basically, what I'll do is I'll do insert from URL. So I'm talking to the Google API, and I'll get the data back, and that data I'll put it into a field, but I could have put it in a variable. So as you can see from now, is wherever you've got insert from, you have the option to actually put it into a field or a variable. The URL that I'm using is my variable that I created before, and into the curl I'm just going to specify so that people can see is that I really want to make sure that I get JSON back. So when you talk to an API, sometimes, most of the time now, they'll reply with JSON formatted data, but sometimes it could be XML. So if you're not really sure, with the curl, you can basically really specify that the content type that you want is JSON. And what I'm doing here is basically really saying is get me that data with a header and into a JSON format. So it's a bit over the top, but basically just show you what can be used, how you can use curl in your request. And so I get the data back and I can do whatever I want. So I've got my data here. How do I get the latitude and the longitude back? So it's quite easy. From here I can specify the new field, and my calculate result is basically just JSON get element. So how does it work to actually get the right line? So when you look at the list of objects that you have, you just need to basically sort of read it and then go down the lines to actually see where you are. So as you can see, basically it starts up results, so that's the first bit of information that I have, and then from that, from results, I've got three options. I can actually get data from the address component and get data from that list, or I can get it from here, from the formatted address, or the geometry, and then from geometry this is all the information that I have on top of it. So in my case, I want to get the location. So you've got the bounds, which is basically a different part of it, but if I want to make sure that I get the location on top of it, I want to get that field. So all I've got to do is say from result, and so every time you start with numbering, so different lines, you start from 0. So the first line of results of information you get is 0 and not 1. So that's one thing to make sure you watch out about. And so from results, I've got only one line, but I'm just saying from result what is 0. So first line, I want the system to get from the object geometry the location, which is there, and lat. There you go. And that just basically gives me that result. So by just basically getting on the right line, you can actually get the option to specify whichever data you want to get to. If I give you another example, is to be able to actually get the whole data in a nice way. If I do a copy of that, and I'll show you in a new enhanced data viewer, so as you can see now, it's automatically evaluated, and I can watch about the information. So if I wanted basically to get anything else, so all I'm doing is I'm saying is I want to get element from the address component, first part of the information, so long 0, and I want to get that long name. If I change it to short name, I just basically type it in here, and that gives me the information. So quite straightforward, quite easy to use, and then you can do pretty much anything you want to out of it. So you see that is an example where we actually sort of went for Google API, which is quite straight and easy. The other example I'll just show you quickly is based on a Google API to actually get directions between two places. So I can basically say I want to go from London to Manchester, and all I'm saying is I'm sending that information, so using instant file mail to the API, to the web service, and it's basically giving me all that information back. So it took a couple of seconds, but what it basically did was to say, give me all directions. So it's creating all the information that you'll find in a GPS system. And then to get information, all I've got to do is say, okay, from route, I want you to give me the distance, the text value of that, and at the time I just get duration text, and I can pull that. So basically, once you've got the data, you can do whatever you want. And if you wanted to create your own driving directions, you can actually do it, because within information you have the instructions, HTML format, you've got all the points, you get the points, so basically you could actually put that on the map, and this is all the information to go from London to Manchester with all the points within Google to actually get you there. So you can see it's actually quite long. If I want to do another one which is even longer, if I go San Francisco, which might take a bit more time. So basically it'll take you about 2 days to drive and do almost 3,000 miles, and you get absolutely everything. So it's quite nice, but as you can see, basically to actually give me all the information, it's really quick. And that's the one sort of beauty about JSON, is because it's all sort of text-based and it's quite light. It's quite easy to read, and there's a lot less information that you might actually get than what you can find in most XML formatted text file. So with the external script steps now that we've added in FileMaker, we'll be extending the FileMaker plugin SDK that gives you the option to create those external script steps, which will be supported as well in the iOS app SDK. So you now have the option to be able to create plugins directly for your iOS app, which is quite new stuff. In terms of security, for the FileMaker 16 platform, we've made enhancements in the area of security by providing new capabilities, and we've added support for O2 auth providers, so third-party providers. So you have Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And the way it works is basically you're linking your FileMaker server to the security systems within Amazon, Google, or Microsoft, so that you can actually get everything being controlled from the outside and don't have to actually do all the security from within FileMaker. We've been able to actually add as well clickable lock icons, security lock icons, which will give you information regarding your SSL certificate info validity within the UI. And the one thing we've created on top of that is we've been adding a field level text encryption. So now you'll be able to encrypt text in a field once it's been entered by the user. as you can see basically now is you've got the padlocks be everywhere that will tell you how good your security is in your system. And if you have linked your file to the Amazon account, you'll be able to just click on the Amazon button, and that will use your settings in your system, in your machine, to automatically log into your file. So in terms of scalability, now we have support for up to 500 users. So that will be basically spread across a few machines. So the way it will work is you'll have your master work machine. The master machine will basically has one web engine publishing engine on that system, and then you'll be able to add 4 extra on top of that to your system. An interface to install that is quite easy. When you install FileMaker Server on this new machine, you just use the WebDirect worker, and that will install that quite easily, and you have an interface to link into your main server. But the nice thing is you could have a web publishing engine not necessarily in the same hosting environment. They could be in different places, either around the world or around Europe or around your country. So for the requirements for 16, in terms of FileMaker Pro and Pro Advanced, you can use the latest 2 version of macOS, or Sierra and El Capitan, and for Windows you have still 10, 8.1 and 7. In terms of FileMaker Go, you can run any devices on iOS 10, so that includes all the iPad, iPad minis, iPad Pro, iPhone and iPod Touch. For FileMaker Server, you could use macOS Sierra and El Capitan, and for the Windows side, it's Windows Server 2016, 2012 R2 or 2008 R2, which is soon to be deprecated. In terms of the FileMaker WebDirect browser support, on the desktop you can use Safari, Chrome, IE11 or Microsoft Edge, and for mobile browsers on iPad and iPhone you can use Mobile Safari, and for Chrome it will be Chrome 55 on Android. So here's the recap of basically all the new features that we have implemented in FileMaker 16. A lot of new stuff with integration, which will basically give you the option to get your system to talk to other apps quite easily on a daily basis. So now we can do a couple of questions. We're almost running out of time. So how do we get the demo kit? So yeah, if you go on the community website, so it's community.filemaker.com, which is where we have all sort of announcements about the platform, discussions, whatever. You just need to log in, so you create an account. If you haven't got one, just log in there. And if you do a small search for demo or demo kit, which will take you directly to that, you'll basically be able to get access to all those files. So there's currently 7. There'll be the 7. There'll be an 8th one coming in soon. Currently, they're being localized so that around the world they can be used. So currently there's UK only versions, but we're putting localized version into that, so anyone around the world can actually use them in their local language. And you can see basically it's based on a new area that we've created called App Innovations, and within that you'll be able to actually find other sort of example of what people do or questions, and it's quite easy to go through, and you'll see there's different stuff that you can do and ideas from developers around the world. It's quite a nice platform and place to go and get the info. So thank you for joining that webinar. I hope you've actually found it useful. For those who've asked questions and we weren't able to actually answer, we get back to you by emails or by phone. But as ever, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this new version of FileMaker. Goodbye.